Welcome to the extended version of this lesson on plot. So far we've covered the essential parts of plot and how it includes all of the external events and actions in your story. Now let's talk a little bit more about the idea of a high concept premise, dig a little deeper into subplots, and cover an in-depth example of Plot 2022's Prey. Let's start out with high concept premises. We mentioned the premise is like a bite-sized version of the plot. But you've probably heard the term high concept premise before, so what does that mean? A high concept premise basically means the premise is easy to explain and very compelling. Like, so compelling that when you hear it, you'll want to watch the movie. One of our favorite examples is Jurassic Park, which you could pretty much describe as dinosaur theme park, and your work is done. It's another way to say your plot is super easy to pitch to people. High concept premises often have some inherent juxtaposition or irony. For example, Dinosaur Theme Park uses the inherent juxtaposition between dangerous dinosaurs and enjoyable theme parks to create intrigue as to what will happen when the two collide. Of course, high concept implies the existence of low concept, and potentially even more levels in between. This would basically be a scale of how easy to pitch and compelling your premise is. Where Jurassic Park is on the high end, films that are artsy or more character-driven would be on the low end, like A24's The Florida Project. Now, it may seem like the goal should be to get as high on the concept meter as possible, because then your story is easy to pitch and very compelling. Well, there is a trade-off. The higher your concept, the more expectations your audience will bring, and the easier it is to disappoint them. In other words, your premise can supercharge your story, but only if your story can live up to the premise. Next up, let's talk about subplots. There is no hard line on when a part of a story is a subplot versus another part of the main plot. However, there is a very common type of subplot that is easy to spot, and that's a romance subplot. Our earlier example of Juno fits this category, but here's another from Bridesmaids. The main plot concerns Annie as she prepares for Lillian's wedding. However, Annie meets a cop named Rhodes who she has a romance with throughout the film. You'll notice that this romance has nothing to do with the main plot. So then, why is it there? Remember how we said the point of the A story, B story fusion was to show that a character wants something physical, but before they can earn it, they must make a psychological change. Well, romance subplots are a way to show a secondary thing the protag wants. In this case, it's a love interest. And so we end up emphasizing that message as we understand that until the character makes a psychological change, they will not only fail to earn their physical want, but other secondary physical wants as well. Finally, let's see the plot in action with our in-depth example.
Prey is a 2022 film that follows Naru, a Comanche warrior, as she protects her tribe from the futuristic Predator, a hunting alien looking for worthy foes. It's a successor to 1987's Predator, and this action-driven film focuses mainly on its A story. Let's cover what we talked about in this lesson and how it's shown in Prey. To start, the plot is all of the events that happen to your protag and the actions your protag takes. In this case, that includes everything from Naru finding a skinned snake, to fighting a bear, to being caught by French colonists. If we were to boil this down into a premise or logline, we could say something like, a 1700s Comanche warrior fights a superpowered alien to protect her tribe. Notice the inherent juxtaposition between a 1700s warrior and a superpowered alien, and how compelling they are when put together. This premise is definitely high concept. Next, we said a key element of plot is a protag. In this case, that is Naru. The protag must want something. In this case, it's established early on that Naru wants to prove herself as a warrior. So we could say her want is prestige. Initially, she wants to go on a katamiya, where she fights a wild animal alone. However, when she finds evidence of the predator, she realizes her tribe is in danger. This gives her an opportunity to prove she is a warrior by hunting down the predator and saving her tribe, which becomes her goal. Notice this want motivates the whole story. Naru wants to prove herself. The way to prove herself is to defeat the predator. So the plot follows her hunting down and eventually fighting the predator. This would be considered the main plot, and in this movie, there are no substantial subplots. We also briefly mentioned that as the protag goes after what they want, they will face obstacles or antagonistic forces. Prey is no exception, as Naru faces environmental obstacles like this mud pit, natural obstacles like this bear, and human obstacles like these French colonists. A wide variety of antagonistic forces capped off by the main antag, the Predator. There is almost no B story in Prey, which is why it's such a good example of how to create a strong plot. And if you want a story with even less B story, look at Prey's predecessor, Predator.
That covers our in-depth example for this lesson on plot. You should now have a solid understanding of what plot means, its components, and the risks and rewards of a high concept premise. In the next lesson, we'll explore the theme, or B story, and see how it can add depth to your action-filled plot.